Okay. Thank you, Mons. Let's just make sure it's there. Come on. It's the weak open space signal. There it is. Okay, it's not live streaming yet. Refresh.
Yeah.
Still not there. This was yesterday. Are you on your phone?
I'm just gonna check it.
Oh, there it is, Mouse.
Yeah, there we are. Okay.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. Oh, there it is, Mouse.
Yeah, there we are. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I wanted to ask you a question. I don't know if now is the right moment. And believe me, you can absolutely say no. So yesterday, people were watching, and I don't know why, but intuitively, I just turned my screen around so they could see.
Right.
So it's on a delay, as you can see.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fascinating to see me talking and then the delay to happen. And then I started pumping the audio out there by using my microphone. And it occurred to me, and I've discussed it with Doug, about maybe putting a video screen in here, which would be a tap off of this.
Right.
And then he said, well, he kind of rolled his eyes like, I want to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Then he goes, just ask Miles. And then he walked out. So
Okay.
I want to know, first of all, if you think it's feasible, do we have the dongle and so on? And secondly, how much trouble? It's not a necessity.
Yeah.
And you could definitely say, you know what, Chris, there's only 4 days left or whatever it is. It's not worth it. And where would we put it and all of that?
Yeah. Like this wall, like the mounting on the wall, the
Not
wall's
too
not
good
that
idea.
strong
No,
to
I would
mount on.
suggest not doing it.
But on a plinth or something.
Or I was thinking of the other tray that we never,
Oh, yeah.
not this tray, the other one that looks like this. There's another tray that
Oh,
looks like this.
yeah. Yeah, they can sit on that one, I think.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at a dongle from here and a cable to there. We don't have to
Yeah.
take the audio because we've got multiple
Yeah.
audio.
Yeah, it would just be an output of the video
Yeah.
signal off the
Right.
laptop. Yeah, that should be fairly simple. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Let's not do it now.
okay. But I can get a monitor. We have a spare like 32-inch monitor. We
Okay.
might even have a spare 42-inch that we could just put on and I
Yeah.
can have it down here
Yeah.
tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
are you thinking like today?
No, tomorrow. Tomorrow. I could even come earlier tomorrow. We can test it.
Yeah,
The other thought I had is if it could go in there somehow, but I don't know.
like on the table.
Yeah, propped
Yeah.
against, but I don't know. And then the other thing, before we go to all this trouble, it's somewhat hard to read through the reflection of the glass. Just go out for a second and see if you can see this. Do you see that? Yeah? Can you hear me? Yeah. But is this readable, legible to, yeah?
When I stand looking at it, my
Yeah.
shadow creates a nice dark space.
Oh,
and I
okay.
can
It
see
blocks
it
the
cuts through
reflection. Okay.
So
Okay.
I can see it.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, the question for me is, there's some advantage to have it, but is the payoff worth it?
right.
And if it's a matter of one cable to one screen, I think it's worth it. But if it's more complicated, do you have the dongle?
Let's see.
It's an HDMI, I think.
We do. Yeah, right there. We do
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Okay.
We have HDMI cables.
Is that how you run mostly when you're running video?
Or
you're running
as
off
an
a-
output of a laptop. Yeah,
Yeah.
the HDMI.
And it works easily.
Yeah, usually it works very easily. Yeah.
You do HDMI to HDMI?
Yeah. To
Okay.
the input of the TV.
And all we're doing is the video.
And yeah, just the video.
So
and
it's a
then
matter of propping the thing up properly.
the video would. A lot of times the audio comes through the HDMI cable. We can send that so it doesn't come through the HDMI.
Yeah, just turn the
cable.
volume down.
Or turn the volume down. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't need another audio source. It's confusing enough.
Yeah.
So, but it would just allow me to continue to monitor here for folks to see it. I don't know if there's another way. Maybe it could be here. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, wherever it is, that's just limited by the length of the HDMI cable.
Which is how low?
We have one we have two that are 50 feet,
Oh.
and we have some 6 foot. So we have enough HDMI cables.
Okay, so let's talk about it at the end of the day.
Okay.
Are you up for this?
Yeah, sure.
You don't see it as a
No.
taking too much
Yeah,
time?
just putting a monitor on a stand, and that's
Yeah,
easy.
it shouldn't be that hard, yeah. And we'd have to plug it in somewhere.
Yeah, just some power. I could either
Run up the cable.
I could either come off that or another cable.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your considerations. So, here we go. We're sorting. What are we sorting anyway? Well, this whole thing started by sorting objects, sorting through an archive. Sorting through, actually that's not even right. Sorting through something to consider to be put in an archive. And I just had a visitor here a few minutes ago coming down, and she was talking about the necessity even of having to have an archive and what the meaning of an archive is. And do artists simply want an archive because it's some kind of vanity project? Are they leaving a legacy? What is the legacy about? How to decide what to sort to leave in the archive and what not to sort? All complex questions are not easily answered. And they don't just translate from the point of view of artists. They translate for everybody, because everybody's sorting all the time. They're sorting their things, their objects, their ideas, their emotions. I spoke with somebody today who's going through an emotional time in their lives, and they were trying to figure out what to do with the feelings and how to make sense of them. And my advice was to just try to experience them and see what they bring. But that's easy advice for me to give when I'm not involved in the actual emotional experience of going through what this person was going through. So yeah, the idea of sorting, the concept of sorting, the reality of sorting, the practice of sorting is an ongoing thing, and it's multiple in the way that it invades into our lives, into our thoughts. As I said, we sort objects, we sort feelings, we sort experiences, we sort thoughts, we sort our friends, we sort our images, whether they're electronic photos or stuff we're posting. We're constantly in the position of deciding, where's this going, where's this going, where's this going? And it's most of the time not a binary experience. Sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm keeping this, I'm throwing this away. It's just either or, but most of the time not. Most of the time there's a lot of subtlety in what we sort and a lot of categories. I just went through sorting a whole bunch of cables, and I thought, well, I can just sort them, into electronic cables and electric cables, but it's not as simple as that, because I've got cables that are both and some that are neither. And that's a kind of like crude example of the more complex things that we sort. Where we think it's binary, we can just say, I want it or I don't want it. But there's a lot of stuff that falls in between. And there's a lot of stuff that falls in the category of I'm saving it, but I'm saving it for somebody else. Or I'm saving it, but I don't exactly know why I'm saving it. Or I'm putting this into a maybe category of saving. Maybe I'm saving, maybe I'm not saving, I'll decide later. And then other stuff, it's clear that you're not saving it and you get rid of it. Or you recycle it, or as I say, you give it to someone. So the question is, why is it that we have to sort? And my answer to that is, because we collect things, because we're human beings that collect. And when I say we, I mean pretty much all of us. The only people that don't have to sort through their things are nomadic peoples, or people that are refugees, or people that are on the move for one reason or another. Because even the poorest among us, even the most impoverished people that live on this planet, still have certain kind of objects that they keep with them. Whether they're objects that have a use for them, whether they're objects that are worth something in a market exchange, or whether they're objects that have a symbolic value to them. And all three of these values, it's elaborating Karl Marx's idea of exchange value and use value, but I think it's important as artists and cultural workers that we talk about cultural value, or let's put it another way, values created by the cultures that surround a given object or thought or ritual or ceremony. And that practice of sorting with culture in mind creates a symbolic value. There's a guy out here trying to listen to what I'm saying. But he's going next door now. Because sometimes when people come by and stop, I like to be able to relate to them and to not privilege the electronic world, but to relate directly to their presence. He's gone away now. So yeah, so what about these values? What about the value that we use to sort things? One of the things I've been finding as I sort through my own archive are that certain objects could have, without me knowing, could have an exchange value. So I quickly check out on Facebook Marketplace or the millions of other places where eBay, where people sell things, and I'm astonished to realize that a particular bottle of vodka from the 2010 Olympics is now worth $210, the empty bottle, I might say. So there's many examples of that. The point being is, should we keep things because of their monetary exchange value? Should we keep them because we might use them one day? Use is a very interesting word because it's not clear what use really is. Or should we keep it because it has a symbolic value, a value created by culture, which tells us that objects hold memories. A good example of that, of course, is the photograph, whether it's a held up photograph like this, or an electronic photograph, where we can't just seem to delete it because it conjures up a person or an experience, or even just a feeling that was created by the image, either at the time that the image was shot, or afterwards when we look at it and it conjures stuff up for us. What do we do about that? Do we say, well, that memory's gone, or that person was somebody that I used to know, maybe somebody that I was closely, intimately involved with, but they're no longer in my life. So do I really need to keep an image of them? Do I really need to have those memories? Because we have those memories anyway. We're walking around with those memories. And when, a few minutes ago, when I did have this visitor, we were talking about how there was a time where we didn't have to sort, and when I say we, I mean the collective cultures of the planet, where we were all kind of hunter-gatherers and we didn't accumulate a lot of things, and there was no electronic means, or even for that matter, analog means of storing things. There were no museums, there was no printing press, there was no filing systems, and certainly no servers and all the other paraphernalia of culture. Passing through, first of all, sounds that represent the experience or the thing or the feeling, the language, the written language of the spoken language. So you get one step removed with the spoken language and 2 steps removed with the written language. And now we're living in an age where even the written word, whether it's typed, into little block letters, symbols on a computer, or even if it's handwritten, we're moving away from the representation through words and images to a place where that can be generated by machines. And not only can it be generated by AI, as we see in the slop that's all over the internet now, it can be deliberately generated falsely. So we're heading towards, if we're not already partially living it, a society where what we see or hear, or even what we experience, we're not even sure if it's real anymore. I'm just waiting for people to start falsely suggesting that certain people have died, and then evidencing the passing of that person through images that are AI created, and provoke feelings in the receiver, the person who's part of the reception of that knowledge, of that news. Oh, so I won't even mention a person, but so-and-so has died today. Oh, that makes me feel such and such and such. And only to find out at a future date that that person hasn't died. And it's not just about death either, it's about any facet, as we see south of the border, of creating alternate realities. But not just alternate realities that kind of add up to a kind of strange worldview, as in south of the border, but alternate realities that are dissonant and don't necessarily add up to a full understanding of something. They're just noise. Noise going this way, noise going that way. In a kind of dissonance, in a way of grading and confusing the reality of what is real. I've asked this question before, and I'll ask it again. How do we live in a society if what we see and hear and feel, we're not certain if it's real or not? I'm not calling, as some people do, for, the national unity symbols that will tie us all together. Yes, I will be watching part of the Habs game today. Hopefully they don't lose. I'm not calling for that kind of collective understanding of something, because that has a danger of, rah, 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 propaganda, rah, 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 fascism. Everybody must believe and understand and see things the same way. I'm not calling for that. I'm very happy to have dissonant views and alternative views and views that are that clash with the mainstream ways of understanding that are different than the person beside me. No problem with that. But those views that we all hold, and whatever our perspective is on reality, on sounds, on images, we have to somehow agree that the images and sounds themselves actually are real, that they're not completely fabricated. Or in the case of, let's say, the cinema, where they are fabricated, but we know they're fabricated. We know that, computer-generated images are helping to create the reality. So we don't wind up in an alternative universe, an alternative moment, where we are so altered that we don't actually know where we are. A matrix where there's no direction. A matrix where you don't know if it's blue or red. A matrix where you're at sea, you're lost, you're not clear where you are. That's more what I fear. It wouldn't just be confusion, it would be a kind of limited insanity, which I think is what a lot of people feel about the world today. They're not really going insane. The world is not insane, but it's bordering on those kind of delusional touches, the touches that don't tell us what's real, that we don't have a common understanding of the exact same thing. And now people are producing the exact same thing, which is not exact. They're producing realities that don't actually exist. That's the difference. They're producing realities that don't actually exist and presenting them as if they were real realities. Whatever a real reality, whatever that means. I guess it means a commonly understood reality. Like the bus is pulling up right now. There's people waiting on the bus stop for the bus. We can agree with that. All those 5 people waiting for the bus have different feelings about the bus coming. All of them have different perspectives on public transit. Blah, 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 blah. But they can agree on the fact that they're waiting for a bus and that the bus is coming. How to sort reality in a world like that. How to understand what it is we're experiencing when we don't know if the source is real. But to go back a bit to sorting and the importance of sorting and the way in which we sort and what we could do to alleviate the pressures of sorting, because it has become a kind of compulsion in the world we live in now, with all of us collecting so many things, not all of us, most of us collecting so many things. I think there are spiritual people like monks that don't collect a lot of stuff, where that issue is not so strong for them. They don't have to think about getting rid of stuff because they don't have that much stuff to begin with. But for most of us, I'll say it that way, for most of us, the pressure to organize, to decide, to order, to categorize, and ultimately to put into some kind of schema where we can, find the things we've sorted and know where things are. It's not just compulsive, it's kind of mandatory. Because if you don't do that, chaos will reign. You won't have order in your life. What would it be like if you didn't have that? What would it be like if we just experienced things like our ancestors did? And I'm talking about all of our ancestors, not just indigenous ancestors, but no matter where you come from or what race or culture is in your background, there was a time when your people were hunter-gatherers and they were not in a position to collect things, or if they did, it would be very few things because they were on the move. And then whatever they had collected, they would have to take with them to the next place. Therefore, not wanting to collect a lot of stuff. And certainly there were no photographs, or even before there was a written word, even before there was anything resembling paper. But as my previous guest today said, there was a moment, and she's right, where somebody, somewhere, actually in multiple places around the planet, decided to leave their mark, whether they left their footprint, whether they drew a picture of an animal, whether they drew a picture of another human being, a birth or a death. There was a sense of okay, I have to say that I was here. I was here. We were here. They were here. She was here. To mark that passing, that presence, the presence of a human being. I don't think animals really do that in a conscious way. We can see that they've had nests and other kinds of homes, and we can see evidence through their droppings that they were here. But I don't feel that they have a compulsion, as humans seem to do, to actually collect things and leave those things behind. So that seems to be more or less human. I could research that a little bit more and find out if I'm right. But let's say it this way. Even if primates, for example, it turns out they do collect a few things, they don't collect the way we do. We seem to have a compulsion to collect and to create collections. That's, after all, how museums began, from the impulse to collect. colonial people would go out in the world from Europe and other countries and collect the artifacts of cultures from all over the world. And that collection lots of times was actually stealing, actually taking things they shouldn't have taken without permission, sometimes very sacred things, or very substantially, symbolically valued by the culture that they took it from, even if it wasn't sacred. So sacred in a way, I guess you could say. And what is that about? What is it about? Is it about wanting to capture the essence of other peoples that we don't understand, but still want to possess and own? It's a form of possession. It's a form of capturing of other human beings by taking the objects that are of value to them. It's like saying, look at me, I was in such and such a place, and look what I found from the such and such people. I'm deliberately not naming here, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. And frankly, we still do it today. More what we do is, take souvenirs, so sort of authorized taking. But there are people that are still collecting, including collecting human remains around the world and bringing them back to their home country and putting them on display. If it's in their living room in a cabinet de curiosity kind of way, or by selling it to museums, or just putting it somewhere where other people can see it. Somehow that seems not just theft, not just wrong, but like kind of psychologically and socially wrong. It's about, like I say, it's about capturing people. It's about obsessing on the meanings that were so embedded in a certain culture that you can feel somehow that you can own that meaning. And yet, and this is the other side of this sorting of objects, if we didn't do that, we maybe wouldn't have museums. And maybe that would be okay. I'd be okay with it. But we wouldn't have any insight into the cultures of other people that we know nothing about. I personally, and I feel like many of you as well, I've learned a lot, quite a lot, from looking at objects from other parts of the world, other peoples that I know very little about, and not trying to understand their cultural ways, how they give significance and meaning to objects. I guess the distinction is taking objects that you feel are your right to take without any consultation, and taking, in some cases, sacred objects, versus taking objects that are given with permission. So you can see things that were stolen that never should have been stolen and are now very, very slowly being returned. Or you can see, I don't know, paintings of Aboriginal peoples of Australia displayed in Paris that the artists themselves are fine for that to be happening. It's tricky. It's tricky, and that's why it's a debate in museums, in the new museology, which is an attempt to try to understand this colonial process and give back as much as is possible to the original cultures, but more importantly to the peoples from those cultures, so they can make whole their understanding of whatever it is, a totem pole or whatever it is. But still, that doesn't answer. Colonialism shows the worst side of collecting and shows the oppressive side of it, but it doesn't explain the compulsion to collect. So here I'm talking about how we might collect buttons or t-shirts or stones or seashells. I have two crab shells here that I found on the beach. Which basically have no exchange value. I'm pretty sure that I couldn't sell them to anybody. They don't really have much of a use value. I don't know what I would use them for. They're kind of dirty inside, and they could have potentially, I guess, been used as an ashtray or something like that. But neither I nor anyone I know smokes, so I don't know what. But they have a great symbolic value. I won't bore you with the stories of them, but the connection to the person I was with when I found them, the place that I was in when I found them, the feelings that I had from being in that place that were created by the actual being there, by the water. There's a lot of history in there. There's a lot of memory in there. There's a lot of, I guess, sentimentality. I don't mind to call it that, although that word has connotations that are not positive, let's say it that way, and that we get caught up in sentimentality, whether we're looking at crab shells or photographs or even letters that people might have sent us or little notes they might have sent us. I suppose in some ways it's easier to get rid of the electronic ones because it's just a matter of looking at it and clicking it away. When they're actual things, like this, for example. What's an actual photograph? It's harder to do that. But should it be? Shouldn't it be easy to just detach ourselves, untie ourselves, let the objects drift away, find another home in the universe? Why do we need to hold on to them anyway? Why is that necessary? And what to do with them when we pass? To give a photograph that has meaning to us, to one of our descendants, one of our loved ones. What are they supposed to do with it? If it has no meaning for them? How are they supposed to sort it? So you've held on to something for 50 years because it has such deep sentimental meaning for you. You give it to someone before you die, they hold on to it because they know it's important to you. And then after you're gone, they just throw it away. I've told this story a few times about living in a place, a duplex, when myself and my family moved back to Victoria. And it was an up and down duplex, and in the bottom was an older woman. She would have been in her 70s or 80s then. And as we lived together, we shared a common storage space in the back outside, like a storage shed. And we would help her because she was older. I was younger then, now I'm older. Any case, she finally was not able to look after herself and moved into an old folks care home. And one day I was out looking at our stuff, reorganizing it, imagining that a new tenant would come, and realizing that she left a box behind. And in that box were old 35mm slides, photographs, all documented, all described, all tagged, all ordered. This was when she went to Niagara Falls. This is when she went somewhere with her sister, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, yikes, this was a box full of really important memories. I've got to make sure that she gets it. She may not even realize that she didn't have it anymore. So I searched her, couldn't find her. Finally, I found some clues that led me to the old folks home that she was in. And when I got there with the box, really anxious to give it to her and really happy that she would have her memories back, I realized that a month before she had passed away. She would have been in her 90s by then. So here I am with this box of slides that have literally no meaning to me. I know none of the people in the slides except her. Her name was Lillian. None of Lillian's loved ones, comrades, friends, acquaintances, places that she went. And I didn't know what to do with it. I mean, they're of no consequence to me. They have no symbolic meaning to me other than they were once belonged to my neighbor. And yet, I found it difficult to throw the box away. And she would have passed away something like 15 years ago, and I've still got the box. Now, in this sorting process and going through the archive, I've either got to figure out something to do with that box and create some kind of artistic piece that alludes to that memory, or I'm going to have to throw it away because there's not much point in keeping it otherwise. And I even spoke to her daughter, who at the time was herself already in her 60s, and she said, you know, I don't want it. There's lots of images there that I don't really relate to. Just throw it away. So not only do I have the passing of Lillian, which kind of instructs me to throw it away, I have orders from her benefactor, her surviving daughter, to throw it away. And yet somehow I can't. So what is that? That's kind of like a sentimentality by association or something. That a sign just went flying in the wind. We're having a kind of windy day today. And the street here that this art center is on, it's a narrowish street for a main street. It's a one-way street. And there's tall buildings on both sides, and it creates a kind of wind tunnel from the water, which is down there. And it blows up this street. While we're walking around here, you can take a look at a few things. Can't see the bus stop because the van is in the way. These are stuff I've been saving. This is stuff I've been sorting over here. Brought down some artworks that ask, is this leisure? Is this work? Is this play? Is this art? Try asking that about any activity, because it's possible that it does fall into any one of those categories. I'll just put it in the back there. So the words are still relevant to what we're experiencing together. There we go. Well, the deep well that we touch only occasionally within us is a well that will only bring the water up well. Not necessarily when we need it, but rather when we stop. When we stop the sorting. Live mindfully in the moment. That's often created by being in nature, being by the water, being in the forest, being under a tree, being on the water, and just suddenly resting the mind. I sound like one of those meditation teachers now. And meditation is a way to get there, but there's plenty of ways to get there. And in a world that is overwhelming us with information, a barrage that never stops, and we've all got FOMO, and we're all afraid that somehow something is not something that's just happening, the normal way we think of FOMO, but something that might happen, something that we will potentially not be part of. When everything that we need to give us the sense that everything's okay is already with us. It's already with the moment that we're in, if we can just get into that moment. That well. Well, 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 I would say, I would say, I would say, I would say that sometimes, I can't say, I would say sometimes words are definitely inadequate to express the feeling, the moment, the experience, the thought, the emotion. And yet we insist on words to do this work for us when we could maybe just communicate like this. Old man looks at a camera. What does he see? Young face looks at the image of the old man. What do they see? I've been sorting a lot of cables lately. And as I sorted them, I was left with a lot of connectors, you know, these kind of connectors. Here's another one that are supposedly there to connect us, supposedly there to make it easier to communicate. Here's another one. This is connector living in a thruple world, I guess. And yet it seems like, despite all the incredible ways in which we connect, now we hardly use wires anymore, at least in our daily lives. Everything is still run by wires, but everything's wireless now, and we're Bluetoothing all forms of communication all the time. It seems like we've never had the ability to communicate so much and never had so little to say. And so it's easy in that context not just to sow division and hatred and anger and rage and all the other stuff that we feel online, but also to create realities, as I said before, that don't actually exist. We're surrounded by misinformation, disinformation. What does it actually mean to try to search for the truth anymore? Is it even possible to search for the truth? Maybe the truth is only found in the moment. That we can't really find truth in the making out or the sorting anymore. We cannot make sense so easily, let alone make meaning out of what we experience. And maybe it's about just being in that receptive mode, and that creates a kind of meaning just by itself. We don't need to sort, in other words. We just need to live. We just need to experience. Could it be? 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 What happens when we dream? That's another time when we're not really sorting. Or if something is sorting, we're not conscious of its mechanism. Something is directing us to dreams and away from dreams and then back into dreams. Is that us doing that? Is it our unconscious mind doing that? How is the sorting project? How does the sorting project work? There's a guy there. See that guy sitting there, rocking back and forth? He's trying to figure out how to sort his dreams. As another guy out there tries to explain what he's doing. As he sorts through his own thoughts and tries to explain the phenomenon of the guy that's sorting, who is actually not really sorting, but just rocking in his chair. And now there's another guy there now, and he's looking at bemused amusement at what somebody could sort and why they would sort like that. But meanwhile, he's also sorting his own reactions to what he's seeing and thinking to himself, this is kind of absurd. Why would anybody do this? It doesn't really make sense. And yet somebody's doing it. Yeah, why don't we put these people on the live stream here? At least say hello to yourself. Yeah, you're there. 15 seconds later, you're there. You might actually be the first person who stopped by for a coffee break. Other people just stop by and go, what is this? But you're actually taking a coffee break. Well, if anybody is still there, I noticed there's 4 people still watching. I think I've done everything I wanted to do today. And even though it's not quite a full hour, I'm thinking about stopping the live stream. Because I don't feel like there's very much more to do or say. At least not for anything other than today. It's like looking at a mirror, but the mirror is reversed. So we're not quite sure how to deal with that. That's this hand, oh I see, okay. And that's that hand, okay. So if I were to frame my head like this, or if I were to add my crab ears like this. I could add my crab ears like this. And I would listen to the shells and try to imagine the crab that actually lived in there at one point, and what that crab would tell me now. What are the sounds of its history? Thanks a lot for listening, watching, appreciating, as I do, appreciate my audience a lot. Thank you. Good day.